Hey, it's Chris from Hale Guitar Studio. Welcome. Today we're going to be looking at this Martin OM18 in for a service. We're going to be taking the strings off, tightening the truss rod a little bit, probably lowering the saddle a touch, and just giving it a good old clean up. Let's get cracking. Okay, so strings are off. So I'm going to chuck these because we're going to put a new set on. These are a bit heavier. They're slightly heavy gauge than the ones that are going on, but that's all right because the ones the truss rod's a bit tight anyway, so the lighter gauge will be better. I'm going to pop the saddle out because that's getting brought down anyway. It's pretty high, so there's room, but we're not going to do that for a bit. The first thing to do is to give it a clean. You see the kind of stripes, finger marks on the fretboard. We're going to give that a nice old clean up, get rid of this kind of dusty headstock. Right, here we go. Right, so we're all cleaned up now. So let's have a quick look over the guitar. So the tuners are these open gear tuners. They're really, I like them. They just look great. They're Grovers. They're nice and secure. They're working really well. There's a couple of little dinks along the back of the neck, but overall the guitar's got a couple of marks here and there. It's obviously been well played. It's got a lovely bone nut. The string slots are really good. The frets have got a little bit of wear, but again, it's been used, it's been played. It's got a lovely LR Baggs Anthem pickup system. As you can see, the piezo pickup system's in the middle with a jack on the end. Things to look out for with Martin guitars. The binding around the waist. So in these two areas, and if it's bound on the back as well, it is. The glue breaks down and it can come away, which can be challenging to fix. And sometimes, I mean, there's all sorts of videos you can watch about people using heat guns to melt or reheat the binding, stretch it out and glue it back in, but my experience is it always just pops out again. Replacing the whole binding is a big old job because the whole guitar is finished over the top of the binding. Cutting the binding and gluing it back is probably the simplest fix, but ideally it hasn't happened at all. So if you're looking at a second-hand Martin, definitely check that the binding hasn't come away at the waist. And then the other thing I generally find, although I think this one's not too bad, is that, so I'm running a straight edge down, it's really good actually, I'm running a straight edge down the frets, and if the neck angle is set right, sloping slightly backwards, the edge of the straight edge will sit just tightly on the top of the bridge. Sometimes I find with Martins particularly, it can be a little bit low, and the consequence is your string height's a bit higher. Now, you know, Most people, I think, probably aren't playing an acoustic guitar up here. They're playing it kind of down here, even with a capo on. So the string height here is less relevant. I mean, I'm not talking millimetres out, but they can tend to be a bit higher in terms of string height than some of the other guitars that we work on. But that all said, what an iconic brand. They're lovely guitars. So the next thing I'm going to do is just give this saddle a quick wipe over. I say it's going to probably come out again and be lowered a bit, but I want to get the strings on and get this truss rod tightened and see how far it needs to come down. So while I'm here, I'm going to give that truss rod a little tweak. Nice little tool from a Music Nomad. It's a 5mm truss rod wrench, because the Martin truss rod key is set quite far back, as you can see, so that's where I'm at. That's how far back it is in the body. So with a normal Allen key, it's difficult to reach, if not impossible. But this little wrench reaches all the way in. It's not expensive, you can find it on the internet. And then quite comfortable to tighten the truss rod. Now, I tightened this before when I assessed it, and I'd say it's probably about as tight as I want to go, actually. So I'm going to pull that back out and go and get the client's set of strings that are going on. Okay, so we've got some authentic acoustic Martin Superior Performance Phosphor Bronze with an 11 to 52 gauge. So let's get this packet open and get these strings on now. Fantastic, right, okay, so truss rod. So there isn't really much movement left on this. It's probably as tight, as I said, as tight as I want it to be. So capo on one end. Okay, I would still like that a bit tighter if possible. So quarter turn. Yeah, that's much better. We're going to have a look at this saddle now and see where that sits in terms of the string height. It's pretty high still, so we've got about 3mm and about 2.25. So I want to come down, well, I mean by at least a millimetre, which is going to take quite a bit off the saddle. So, right, here we go. I'm going to undo the strings, take the saddle out, and then we'll talk about how I'm going to shave material off the bottom. And I need to do it so we still end up with a square profile on the underside. And to take a millimetre off, I need to take a little bit of more than a millimetre off of the underside. So I'm going to start off doing that by eye. I'm going to take a bit of a straight edge. This little fret rule works well. I'm going to measure by eye about a millimetre off the bottom. And draw across. Now that's really only to give me a bit of a guide for how far I can go. So that line is just over a millimetre, sort of 1.2, maybe even 1.5. but will get me to exactly where I need to be, I think. So to remove the material, I'm going to take it over to the bench sander first and remove most of that, and then we're going to get a bit of sandpaper on the bench and just rub the rest of it off. So stand by. Okay, so I've removed it down probably about half, maybe 2/3 of the way, but it takes it off pretty quick. So for the rest of it, I'm just going to take, this is 400 grit sandpaper, I'm going to stick it on the hard part of the bench in a minute and just hold it nice and level and just to and fro until I get down to where I want to be. So over on the hard part of the bench, and just start removing material. Okay, so I'm going to go and take that to the desk, give it a bit of a road test, give it a play, see if there's any buzz anywhere, see if there's any space to come down any further, but I think that's probably just about right, and that'll be ready to go. Thanks for watching.